Summary and analysis of 100 Years of Solitude. The story begins with a small group of people setting up a town in the middle of nowhere and ends 100 years later with the last ancestral child of that town being eaten by ants. When 100 Years of Solitude was published for the first time, it changed the rules of storytelling. The story did not move in a straight line, time wandered, doubled back, and repeated itself. Names returned across generations. The past kept leaking into the present. Magic, memory, gossip, and history all lived together on that page without footnotes or explanations. Readers were expected to accept this world on its own terms. I first read the book in my second year of college. Almost everything about it felt unfamiliar to me. The writing was completely different from Charles Dickens, Thomas Hardy, or Dostoevsky. The culture, the values, the lasciviousness, the wayward interpersonal dynamics, the family structure, even the emotional reactions were far removed from what I had grown up with. I did not fully understand it. I got lost in the names and the repetitions. Still, I kept reading because one, the book had a strange confidence, and two, I had already read Love in the Time of Cholera and loved it, and wanted to read more from the same author. Also, I have this habit of completing the book once I have started it, no matter how difficult it becomes to complete it. It has rarely happened that I have abandoned a book midway. I reread the novel about 15 years later. By then, I had read more, lived more, and my vocabulary had improved a lot. The same story felt very different. The repetitions no longer felt confusing. The story now made more sense, and I could keep track of different characters with strange names. I began to see that this was not a book about strange events at all. It was a book about families repeating the same mistakes, about people inheriting habits, pride, and loneliness without even knowing. The roots of this novel lie in Gabriel Garcia Marquez's childhood. He grew up listening to stories from his grandmother, who spoke about ghosts, omens, and miracles in the same calm tone used for everyday news. That way of storytelling shaped the book completely. This is why magical realism works so well here. A woman ascends into the sky while hanging laundry, and no one panics. Ghosts appear, talk, and disappear again. A town forgets the names of objects during an insomnia plague. None of this is treated as shocking, it is treated as normal. The solitude in this book is not about being alone in a room. It is about people being cut off from one another even while living together. Each generation believes it will do things differently. Each one repeats more than it realizes. That is where the real weight of the story lies. The book was written in Spanish, and most of us read it in translation. That matters more than we often admit. The rhythm, tone, and restraint can feel different depending on the translator, which is one reason readers respond to this novel so differently. Summary of 100 Years of Solitude. Before I begin, one small request. I don't know how to pronounce Spanish names, and I may get few of them wrong. Please excuse that. Just focus on the story and how it unfolds. 100 Years of Solitude opens with a moment as if it is the end of the story. Colonel Aureliano Buendia is standing in front of a firing squad. He is about to be executed. At that precise moment, his mind does not go to fear or regret. Instead, it drifts back to a childhood memory, the day his father took him to see ice for the first time. This single shift tells you everything you need to know about how this book works. Time will not move in a linear sequence. The present will keep slipping into the past, and memories will happen as if there are some events happening right now. From the scene of the execution, the story goes back to the beginning. Jose Arcadio Buendia and his wife Ursula Aguiran leave their village after Jose kills a man named Prudencio Aguilar in a duel. Prudencio had publicly mocked him for being unable to consummate his marriage, and the insult wounds Jose Arcadio Buendia's pride deeply. After the killing, Prudencio's ghost begins to appear, quietly following him, a constant reminder of guilt. Living with that presence becomes unbearable. Rather than stay and constantly live under the shadow of a ghost, Jose and Ursula decide to leave and start their lives somewhere else. With a small group of people, they travel for days through forests and difficult land, unsure where they are going. Eventually, they reach a place so isolated that it feels that civilization has not touched it. There are no roads, no neighboring towns and villages, no past to answer to. Jose Arcadio Buendia decides this is where they will stop. He names this place Macondo. In its early years, Macondo is innocent and without history. No one has died yet. Houses are arranged so that everyone receives equal sunlight. The river water is clear. Life feels balanced and hopeful, as if the town has been given a clean slate. Jose Arcadio Buendia becomes the driving force of this new settlement. He is curious, restless, and obsessed with discovery. He believes that knowledge, if pushed far enough, can solve everything. That belief grows stronger when gypsies begin visiting Macondo, especially a man named Melquiades. He brings magnets, alchemy, and strange inventions from the outside world. These visits excite Jose, but they also pull him away from everyday life. His experiments slowly turn into obsessions and he begins to neglect his family. Ursula, his wife, stands on the opposite end of this tension. She is practical, disciplined, and focused on survival. She worries about food, money, and stability. She also carries a deep fear that never leaves her. Because she and her husband are related, she worries that their children might be born with deformities. They are first cousins. That's why, for a long time, she refuses to consummate the marriage, and that's why Prudencio Aguilar insults her husband and loses his life. This fear stays with her for decades and quietly shapes many of her decisions. Their children grow up inside this mix of isolation and imagination. Jose Arcadio, the eldest son, is impulsive and driven by physical desire. Aureliano is quiet, inward looking, and already more comfortable with solitude than with people. Amaranta grows up surrounded by jealousy, resentment, and emotions she never learns to resolve. Even in these opening chapters, the underlying pattern of the book is set. People respond to the same world in very different ways. Obsession takes root early. Since silence begins to spread, solitude begins to engulf every aspect of their lives. Macondo looks like a fresh beginning, but the past has not been erased. It has simply followed the family into a new place, waiting. This section lays the foundation for everything that follows. As Macondo settles into routine, the Buendia household begins to fracture from the inside. Jose Arcadio Buendia's curiosity slowly turns into obsession. He spends more time locked away with his experiments than with his family. He chases impossible ideas, tries to unlock secrets he shouldn't be unlocking, and begins to lose his grip on everyday life. What starts as intelligence and ambition hards into fixation. Eventually, his family realizes that he is no longer fully present in the world around him. Melquiades, the gypsy who brought wonder into Macondo, dies. His death should be the end of him, but in this story, he continues to appear, writing, speaking, and guiding from beyond the grave. This sets an important rule of the book. Death does not mean disappearance. The past does not stay buried, it returns persistently. As Jose Arcadio Buendia's condition worsens, the family restrains him. He is tied to a chestnut tree in the courtyard, where he will remain for years, talking to ghosts and memories while life moves on around him. This moment is crucial. The founder of Macondo becomes its first true prisoner. The town was created to escape guilt and confinement, yet it reproduces both almost immediately. Meanwhile, the children take their own path. Jose Arcadio, the eldest son, leaves Macondo suddenly. When he returns years later, he is physically massive, loud, and intimidating. He carries the outside world on his body, but not its wisdom. He brings disruption rather than growth, and his presence adds violence and excess to the household. Aureliano grows inward. He learns silversmithing, spends long hours alone, and speaks little. Even as a young man, he seems marked by solitude. He falls in love with Remedios Moscote, a very young girl, and marries her. The marriage is gentle but short lived. Remedios dies unexpectedly, and Aureliano retreats further into himself. This loss hardens something inside him that never softens again. Amaranta grows up carrying jealousy and resentment. She interferes in relationships, refuses love when it is offered, and later punishes herself for those refusals. Her solitude is chosen, but it is no less painful. She lives close to others while remaining emotionally unreachable. Outside the household, Macondo begins to change. The town grows, contact with the outside world increases. With that contact comes politics. Civil war enters the story almost quietly at first, then takes over entire lives. Aureliano becomes involved in the conflict and eventually transforms into Colonel Aureliano Buendia. He fights in countless wars, survives multiple assassination attempts, fathers many children, and yet grows more isolated with each passing year. Power does not connect him to people, it separates him further. He fights many wars, he loses most of them. He signs treaties, breaks them, survives executions, and fathers 17 sons, all named Aureliano, scattered across the country. On paper, this sounds like power and influence. In reality, it deepens his isolation. The more famous he becomes, the less he understands why he is fighting. Ideals fade, habit takes over, war becomes routine. This is important. The book is not interested in heroism. It shows how repetition drains meaning. Aureliano begins the war believing he stands for something. He continues fighting because stopping feels impossible. By the time he returns to Macondo, older and hardened, he has learned one thing clearly: power does not fix loneliness, it sharpens it. While Aureliano, I forgot, it's Aureliano, but anyway, I'll continue with Aureliano. While Aureliano is away, the household continues to decay in quieter ways. Jose Arcadio, the physically dominant brother, is murdered under unclear circumstances. His death is loud, sudden, and unresolved. Amaranta grows older, more bitter, and more closed. She rejects love again and again, then punishes herself for those choices. Her solitude is no accident. She chooses it even when it hurts. Ursula, meanwhile, grows old but refuses to step away. She becomes the moral center of the family, holding together generations that barely understand one another. She lives so long that she begins to blur time herself, confusing past and present, speaking to people long dead as if they are still alive. Through her, the book shows how memory can keep a family alive even as it traps it. Macondo continues to change. The town grows richer, louder, and more corrupt. Foreign influence arrives in the form of a banana company. With it comes money, exploitation, and violence. Workers are mistreated, protests erupt, and then comes one of the darkest moments in the book: the massacre of striking workers. Hundreds are killed, their bodies are removed, and then something strange happens. The event is denied. Official records erase it. People claim it never occurred. Memory itself becomes unreliable. Only one character insists on remembering the truth, and he is treated as mad. By the final stretch of 100 Years of Solitude, everything begins to feel tired, not dramatic, not violent all the time, just worn out. The Buendia family keeps growing, but the names repeat so often that even the characters struggle to tell themselves apart. Children and descendants named Jose Arcadio tend to be impulsive and reckless. Aurelianos tend to be quiet, withdrawn, and inward looking. These are not rules but patterns, and the book wants you to notice how little truly changes from one generation to the next. Macondo mirrors this decline. The banana company leaves, rain falls for years and years, washing away buildings, memories, and any sense of direction. Houses rot, streets empty. What was once a town full of noise and movement slowly turns into a forgotten place people pass through without stopping. Ursula dies, and with her goes the last strong thread holding the family together. People live in the same house but rarely connect. Relationships become brief, obsessive, or purely physical. Love does not build anything lasting anymore, it only consumes. The final generation of the Buendia family grows up surrounded by old manuscripts written by Melquiades, which no one has fully understood until now. These writings have recorded the entire history of the family in advance, but they can only be read when it is too late to change anything. That detail matters. Knowledge exists, but timing destroys its usefulness. The last brother and sister drift back to Macondo when the town is already empty in spirit. Buildings are still standing, but life has moved on. People have left, died, or faded into irrelevance. Macondo no longer offers opportunity or danger. It offers familiarity. And for people who have lived their entire lives inside the closed world of one family, familiarity feels safer than the outside world. They begin living together as a couple. There is no grand rebellion here, no sense of thrill. It feels more like surrender. After generations of the Buendias turning inward, choosing blood over the world, the final boundary collapses almost naturally. The warnings about incest have existed from the very beginning. Everyone knows the stories, everyone remembers the fear, yet remembering has never stopped this family from following older ways. When the child is born with a pig's tail, the moment does not shock you. It confirms something the book has been building toward for hundreds of pages. This was always the risk. This was always the price of refusing to break away, of confusing closeness with connection. The child carries the family's history on his body. He is not cursed by fate, he is shaped by choices made long before he existed. Then comes one of the most devastating moments in the novel. The parents are distracted, they are having sex, they are so wrapped in their own lust and craving that they forget the child. The child is left alone briefly. That is enough. Ants, which have appeared throughout the book whenever something is neglected or forgotten, swarm the baby and eat him alive. The baby is not forgotten because they are tired or careless. He is forgotten because he does not matter in that moment. That is the hardest truth the novel delivers. The ants are not the real horror. They are just the mechanism. The horror is that after 100 years of warnings, fear, memory, and repetition, the family still prioritizes pleasure over protection. The baby with the pig's tail is not sacrificed to fate or God or curse, he is sacrificed to desire. This is where 100 Years of Solitude delivers its final truth. The Buendia family is not destroyed by war, enemies, or divine punishment. It ends because neglect becomes normal, because solitude becomes so complete that even life itself goes unseen. After 100 years of obsession, uncontrolled lust, pride, repetition, and emotional distance, the family loses the most basic human instinct to care. When the last Buendia finally discovers Melchior's manuscripts, he realizes the family's history was written to end at this exact moment. There was never meant to be another chance, and as that understanding arrives, a great wind rises and erases Macondo entirely, wiping it out as if it never existed. What stays with you is not the magic or the destruction or even the incest. What stays with you is this: after 100 years of living together, no one was truly there when it mattered most. Here ends the novel. What is the central theme of 100 Years of Solitude? 100 Years of Solitude uses a family saga, romance, politics, war, and tragedy, but it is not about any of them. They are instruments. The central theme sitting underneath everything is solitude, not loneliness, but isolation created by habit, pride, memory, and repetition. You can call it a multi generational family saga. We follow the Buendias over 100 years, watching births, marriages, affairs, wars, and deaths. But the book is not interested in family bonds growing stronger. It is interested in how families can live together and still remain emotionally sealed off from one another. The theme of tragedy is also there, but it is not a tragedy driven by a single fatal flaw or a single moment of error. It is slow tragedy, the kind that unfolds because people do not learn, because warnings are repeated but never acted upon, because patterns feel comfortable even when they are destructive. There is romance and desire everywhere in the book, but love here really connects people in a lasting way. It isolates them, passion becomes obsession, obsession turns inward, sex replaces intimacy. Even the most intense relationships leave people more alone than before. Politics and war appear too, especially through Colonel Aureliano Buendia. But the novel does not glorify revolution or power. It shows how ideology empties out over time, how fighting becomes habit, and how public causes fail to heal private emptiness. So, what ties all of this together? The unifying idea is that human beings repeat themselves, even when they believe they are choosing differently. Names repeat, faces resemble earlier faces, desires echo earlier desires. History does not move forward cleanly, it circles. The solitude is the result of that repetition. Each generation inherits unfinished emotions, unspoken fears, and unresolved mistakes. Instead of breaking the cycle, they carry it forward, often with more intensity and less awareness. This is why the book ends the way it does. The Buendias are not punished for one sin, they are exhausted by repetition. So the novel is not asking you to see it as a family epic, a political novel, or a love story. It is asking you to watch what happens when people live close together for 100 years, talk endlessly about the past, fear the same outcomes, and still fail to change. Everything else, magic, romance, war, tragedy, exists to serve that single unifying idea. The main characters of 100 Years of Solitude. Jose Arcadio Buendia. Jose Arcadio Buendia is the founder of Macondo and the original source of the family's restlessness. He is curious, intelligent, visionary, and deeply unstable. His obsession with knowledge, progress, and discovery creates the town, but it also plants the seed of madness and isolation. He believes ideas matter more than people, and that belief echoes through generations. By the time he is tied to the chestnut tree, talking to ghosts, the novel has already made its point. Great beginnings often contain the flaws that guarantee collapse. Ursula Iguaran. Ursula is the spine of the novel. She lives through multiple generations and holds the family together through sheer will. Practical, moral, and fiercely protective, she understands the danger of repetition long before anyone else does. Her fear of incest and deformity is not superstition alone, it is instinct. She spends her life trying to prevent the family from turning inward completely. When she dies, the family loses its last anchor and the decline accelerates. Her presence delays the end, her absence makes it inevitable. Colonel Aureliano Buendia. Aureliano represents inward solitude. From childhood, he is quiet, distant, and reflective. War does not turn him into a hero, it turns him into a routine machine. He fights endlessly, survives everything, and believes in nothing by the end. His emotional isolation mirrors the political emptiness of endless conflict. He shows how ideology can hollow a person out instead of giving him purpose. His survival is not triumph, it is prolonged emptiness. Jose Arcadio. Jose Arcadio, the eldest son, is pure impulsive. He is physical, loud, and excessive. Where Aureliano turns inward, Jose Arcadio explodes outward. He brings violence, desire, and chaos into the family. His life shows another failed response to solitude. Instead of retreating, he consumes. Instead of reflecting, he dominates. His mysterious death reinforces one of the book's recurring ideas. Excess burns out quickly and leaves nothing stable behind. Amarantha. Amarantha embodies chosen solitude. She rejects love again and again, and even when it is sincere, and then punishes herself for those refusals. Her loneliness is not imposed, it is carefully built. She lives close to people but remains unreachable. Amarantha shows that solitude does not always come from abandonment. Sometimes it comes from fear of vulnerability. Her life is a long act of self denial that adds nothing to the family except quiet bitterness. Remedios the Beauty. Remedios the Beauty stands apart from other characters in 100 Years of Solitude because she does not participate in the rituals and mentalities that trap everyone else. She does not desire, conspire, remember, or reflect in the way the other characters do. Men obsess over her, lose reason, and sometimes lose their lives, but she remains unaware of their longing. It is important to note that this is not innocence in a moral sense. It is detachment. She lives entirely in the present, untouched by ambition, fear, or memory, which are the very things that isolate the rest of the Buendia family. Her rising into the sky while folding sheets is true to the world of the novel because suffering there comes from attachment and she is attached to nothing. People suffer because they cling to love, power, pride, or ideology. Remedios clings to nothing. She never enters the emotional economy of the novel, and so nothing binds her to it. While others are crushed by desire or repetition, she simply exits the story without drama or punishment. In the novel, where solitude is the price of engagement within the world, Remedios escapes not by resisting that world, but by never truly belonging to it at all. Aureliano Babylonia. Aureliano Babylonia is the final consciousness of the novel. He does what no one else manages to do. He reads, he understands, he deciphers the manuscripts that record the family's entire history. But his knowledge comes too late. He cannot change anything. He exists to witness the end, not prevent it. Through him, the book delivers its final message. Understanding without action is meaningless. Memory without change leads nowhere. Important questions about 100 Years of Solitude. What does the title 100 Years of Solitude actually mean? The title is not poetic decoration, it is literal. For 100 years, the Buendia family lives close together but never truly connects. Husbands and wives misunderstand each other, parents fail to see their children, lovers obsess but do not care. Each generation inherits emotional distance and calls it normal. The solitude is not about being alone in space. It is about being sealed inside yourself while surrounded by people. The 100 years is the lifespan of this failure. When the cycle ends, the family and the town end with it. Why does incest keep returning to the story? Incest is not there to shock, and it is not a moral collapse in the usual sense. It is the final stage of a long withdrawal from the world. Again and again, the Bundias turn inward instead of outward. They choose the familiar over the unknown, memory over risk, habit over change. Over time, emotional closeness hardens into isolation, and isolation removes the need for boundaries. By the time incest happens at the end, it is not driven by rebellion or desire. It happens because there is no external reference left strong enough to stop it. The family has folded in on itself so completely that what once felt unthinkable now feels almost inevitable. What does the pig-tailed baby being eaten by ants really mean? It is not divine punishment, it is worse. The pig's tail is the visible proof of a fear that existed for 100 years. Everyone knew this would happen. Everyone warned about it. When it finally does happen, no one acts. The baby is born alive. The tail does not kill him, the parents do. They are having sex. They are absorbed in themselves. They forget the child. The ants, which always appear in the book around neglect and decay, simply finish what indifference begins. The meaning is brutal and clear. The family does not end because of sin or fate. It ends because nobody cares when it matters. Does the book justify immorality, especially incest, obsession, and neglect? No, it explains immorality, but it does not excuse it. Garcia Marquez does not punish immoral behavior immediately, and that is why some readers feel the book is permissive. But the punishment here is delayed and cumulative. Incest does not cause instant disaster. Obsession does not collapse lives overnight. Neglect does not scream for attention. Instead, each immoral act adds weight to a system already under strain. By the time consequences arrive, they feel impersonal and unavoidable. The novel's stance is harsh. Immorality is not dramatic, it is ordinary. People do terrible things while living normal lives, and the damage shows up generations later. The book does not justify incest or neglect. It shows how easily people live with them when there is no immediate cost, and how devastating that delay can be. Why is time non linear in the novel, And how does it help the story move forward? Time in 100 Years of Solitude is non-linear because the characters themselves do not move forward in any meaningful way. Names repeat, habits repeat, fears repeat, and mistakes repeat. A straight timeline would suggest progress. The broken, looping structure reflects the truth of the family's life. Events from the past keep intruding into the present because they have never been resolved. Memory drives action more than choice. By bending time, Garcia Marquez allows the reader to feel how trapped the Buendias are inside their own history. The story moves forward not through development, but through accumulation until there is nothing left to repeat. Why you would want to read 100 Years of Solitude? You should read 100 Years of Solitude because it does something very few books manage to do. It tells a huge story without ever feeling like it is showing off. From the first few pages, you realize this is not a familiar kind of novel. Events unfold without warning. Time jumps forward and backward. Characters with the same names appear again and again. And yet, none of this feels gimmicky. The storytelling is so assured that you stop questioning it and start following the rhythm. That is where the book gets you. It doesn't explain its rules, it expects you to learn them by paying attention. You should also read it because it shows what literature can do when it stops playing safe. This is not a comfort read. It asks you to work. You will get confused, you will lose track of who is who, but that difficulty is part of the point. The book is about repetition, memory, and people failing to learn from the past, and the reading experience mirrors that. By the time you finish the book, it no longer feels like you have followed just one family. You have seen how a way of thinking, loving, and avoiding responsibility plays out across generations until it destroys itself. That is why people keep returning to this novel decades later. It does not rely on reputation or praise. It leaves you with a sharper sense of what fiction can do when it takes time, memory, and human failure seriously. Why you may not want to read 100 Years of Solitude. First, the book can be genuinely confusing. The timelines loop back on themselves, and the same names keep returning, Jose after Jose, Aureliano after Aureliano, until it becomes hard to tell who is who and when exactly things are happening. For many readers, this does not feel clever, it feels tiring. The story often feels like a long chain of episodes rather than a clear forward-moving plot. There is no central antagonist to push against, no traditional build-up, and no neat resolution until the very end. If you like novels where the story pulls you along, this one can feel slow, scattered, and even boring. Second, you may struggle to care about the characters. Many readers find the Buendia family distant, unlikable, or emotionally flat. People repeat the same mistakes, hurt each other in similar ways, and really grow in ways that feel satisfying. Some characters blur into one another, not just because of the names, but because their inner lives don't feel sharply defined. If you read fiction mainly to connect with characters, root for them, or watch meaningful personal change, this book can feel cold and unrewarding. Third, magical realism does not work for everyone. If you prefer logic, realism, and clear cause and effect, the book may test your patience. Ghosts appear and disappear, impossible things happen and are treated as normal. For some readers, this feels imaginative and natural. For others, it feels illogical or gimmicky, as if symbolism is taking priority over story. The prose is dense and often poetic, which many admire, but others experience as heavy, slow, and self-indulgent. Finally, there is the very real feeling some readers get that this is a book you are supposed to admire rather than enjoy. It can feel like serious literature that demands effort but does not always give pleasure in return. Some people abandon it halfway through, frustrated by the repetition, the lack of momentum, and the sense that the novel is more interested in ideas than in the reader. And yes, at times Garcia Marquez can come across as too confident in his own voice, as if daring you to keep up or walk away. So if you want a fast-moving story, clear characters, emotional warmth, or an easy reading experience, this may not be the book for you. 100 Years of Solitude rewards patience and tolerance for ambiguity. Without those, it can feel less like a great novel and more like a long, demanding exercise in literary endurance. With this ends my summary and analysis of 100 Years of Solitude. If you found the video useful, please like it, subscribe to my channel, or click the bell icon so that you receive a notification when I upload another video.